All right, back on Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, and kind enough to join us each and every week is the radio play-by-play voice. Resting those vocal cords today after a late night last night of both the Cincinnati Bengals and the University of Cincinnati football Bearcats. Dan Hoard. Dan, you look like you're somewhere else today. You're not in your normal spot. Where are you, if I may ask?
I'm in my normal spot. I've just flipped the camera around. I'm trying to use my standing desk more often instead of sitting on my tuchus while I'm doing my homework. So I'm using the standing desk. I think you can see my wife Peg a little bit in the background there in the kitchen, but same spot, just
Hi,
flipped
Peg.
around.
Nice to see you back. She waved. You didn't see her wave. Have her come here a minute. Have her come here a second. I want to ask her something.
I would
real
like
quick.
you to make a cameo, Peg.
Yeah, I would. I mean, I want to ask her what her weekends are like when you're double dipping on Saturdays and Sundays all the time, and her main man's gone.
You know what? She has turned down that request. I think she's gone to the other side of the house and gone into her office. So
That's what
you're
happens
not
to
going
my
to
wife.
get your wish on that one.
That's what happens when I try to get my wife to come near me. It's the same deal. She turns and runs for the hills. Hey, last night,
either one of them.
how incredible was that scene last night?
It was as good as it gets. The only thing comparable for me was last year's playoff game against the Raiders. I thought at the end of the Raiders game, that was the loudest I've ever heard Paycor Stadium. But for the beginning of a game, getting into it right from the opening kickoff, last night was as good as it gets. 67,000 plus, wearing white, going bananas. They made a difference. I mean, you could see it in the first quarter. The Dolphins guys are looking at each other going, what? I can't hear you. Had to burn 2 early timeouts. Crowd gets a big assist for what they did last night.
And, I love the whiteout thing. I just thought it was so cool. We've seen it in college football. The place that comes to mind we were talking earlier is Penn State. And they do it unlike anybody else because you got 105-something thousand people there. But I just thought last night aesthetically was so cool.
Yeah, it looked fantastic in person. I haven't gone back and watched the game yet on TV, but my wife Peg told me how great it looked after she watched the game last night. So, things like that I think make Cincinnati look great when the stadium is packed. The commentators are talking about how unbelievably loud it is. And they made a difference until the end of the game. So kudos to Bengals Nation for all they did last night, and to the Bengals organization for coming up with the white tiger helmets, painting the logo white and black at the 50, changing the end zones. All of those little details were great.
All right, so, Danny, I asked Paul Doherty a moment ago, and you're there each and every Sunday and have been for how many years now you've been doing the Bengals games on radio?
This is my 12th.
Okay, 12th year. You've seen a lot of good, and you've seen some not so good. And you've seen some good and not so good here through 4 games of this season. What stands out to you, Danny, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things about the game last night?
Well, number one, it would be the continued excellence of the Bengals defense. Now, it undoubtedly helped that Tua Tagovailoa got knocked out of the game and Teddy Bridgewater finished up, although I thought he played okay. But this defense has given up 1 touchdown in the last 34 possessions for the opposition. They've given up a total of 4 offensive touchdowns in 4 games. The challenge is going to get tougher a week from Sunday night when they're in Baltimore and facing Lamar Jackson. But you can only play who's on the schedule. And so far, the defense has been unbelievable. Second, I would say that the offensive line is trending up. 2 sacks allowed last week, 1 sack allowed last night. Even better last night, I think it was only 3 quarterback hits allowed. So Joe Burrow was not spending a lot of time on his back. I thought the pockets were good, particularly the push straight ahead. So the center and the guards, I think, are giving him good depth in the pocket. The one negative would be the continued struggles in the run game. They certainly tried Joe Mixon a lot last night, 24 carries, 4 catches. But in the run game, they're only getting about 3 yards per carry. So that's the one thing that they need to continue to fix. But I do think by the end of the year, you're going to look at Joe Mixon's rushing numbers, and he's going to have, 1,100, 1,200 yards, something like that. He's too good not to eventually get it going, but it's something they've got to try to fix as soon as possible.
Danny, do you think, and look, the personnel was very different when Samaje Perine piled up all those big yards to close out the Jets game. They were an extra offensive lineman. I think they were 2 tight ends. It was a borderline jumbo package, and P. Ryan's hitting the hole, and off they go. I'm with you on Mixon. I think he is an unbelievably talented player. He can catch the ball out of the backfield. He's powerful. He's fast. Not a blazer, but fast enough. He's strong. He cares. And I'm with you. I think when all's said and done, that he probably does get up in that 1,100, 1,200 range. But does it make any sense to try and give P. Ryan a few more touches in the run game here over the next couple of weeks, do you think? Or not yet?
I would say not yet. And I don't think so in general. I think Samaje Perine has a role on third down, and it's a role he handles well. I'd like to see Chris Evans a little more because I think he's such a dynamic pass-catching threat out of the backfield. They did try him a couple of times last night. But if Joe Mixon is healthy, Joe Mixon is the man. He'll figure out whatever issues, might exist on his side. I don't really think it's him as much as just continuing to figure out what plays this offensive line blocks best. I think that's an underrated aspect in all of this. We talk about an offensive line needing to develop chemistry and improving their communication. But I also think the coaching staff and offensive line coach Frank Pollock need to understand or need to learn just from watching these guys which offensive line plays they're going to be able to block best. Not every guard pulls exactly the same. Some tackles are good at straight ahead drive blocking. Others are good at moving sideline to sideline. They're figuring all of that stuff out. I have a lot of faith in Frank Pollock, and I don't think they're going to be the best rushing team in the NFL. If they were, we'd probably know that by now. But I do think, they've got the pieces to be good, and I'm sure they'll get a lot better soon.
Danny, how well have you gotten to know, if at all, and it's tough to have media access, especially over the last year and a half, a lot more for the first time this year than the last couple of years, and he's only been here, 3 years now, I think. How well have you gotten to know Von Bell? And if you've talked to him enough to make to form an opinion, tell us a little bit about Von Bell. This guy's a hell of a player and has been for a long, long time, and not just because he got 2 interceptions last night. He's just a really good player.
He's a good player, but I think maybe the biggest contribution he's made to the team is just setting the tone in his professionalism. I think just about everybody's heard by now about, the schedule that he keeps. He's the first guy in. He gets a workout in at the crack of dawn. Several teammates have followed his lead and started doing the same thing, particularly young defensive backs. I just remember, Tom, that when the Bengals signed Von Bell, I reached out to Luke Fickell because I know that, Coach Fickell was with him at Ohio State. And I basically said, what should the Bengals expect out of Von Bell? What does he bring to the table? And Coach Fickell talked about how much of a, tone setter and program changing kind of guy he was at Ohio State. He's just the ultimate pro, doesn't say a ton, but does everything right every day. And that's a big reason why this franchise has turned things around. They've added a lot of pros like Von Bell and eliminated some guys that don't have that attention to detail and work ethic, and it's made an unbelievable difference.
I don't know how many of you out there subscribe to The Athletic. I think if you're a hardcore sports fan and you have a few extra bucks in your pocket, and in this day and age, in this climate, in this economy, then not a lot of people do. But if you're able to chip in and buy that, they're one of the great articles that's been written since I've been subscribing over the last couple of years was a story on what you just said, that the argument can be made that the single best recruit that Urban Meyer ever signed at Ohio State was Von Bell, for all of the reasons that you just talked about. The other guy I want to ask you about, maybe he doesn't have the same kind of reputation as Von Bell, but that's Eli Apple. Now, he's a guy that has thrown himself out there a lot on social media. We know all about that. I thought he showed tremendous restraint, and we talked about this with James Rapine, that right after the Miami game last week against Buffalo, Tyreek Hill throws the challenge, out there on the table. One of the rare times Eli Apple does not bite. He doesn't have anything to say during the week. He just shows up and plays. What have you seen out of Eli Apple these last couple of years as a Cincinnati Bengal?
Well, on the field, he has certainly been a very solid player. When you look at NFL teams, your second cornerback typically isn't a Pro Bowl level player. And I'm not saying that Eli Apple is, but he has been extremely solid, especially since the second half of last season. I do think he showed a lot of restraint last week. Normally, that is not his strong suit. If somebody comes after him, he fires right back, sometimes to his own detriment. But, I'll go back to another UC connection, Tom. Kerry Combs coached Eli Apple at Ohio State as his defensive backs coach. They were very close. Eli Apple gives a ton of credit to Kerry Combs for his development in becoming the 10th pick in the NFL draft. Kerry Combs loves him, and I have a lot of respect for Kerry and his opinion about players. So when Kerry told me that, it kind of opened up my mind to, kind of having a clean slate where Eli Apple is concerned. Eli has been great to me. I made a point to chat with him very briefly after the game last night, just to say I was happy for him since I thought that maybe there was a chance his interception should have been a pick. I saw a still photograph today where it looked like he might have got both feet down.
Yeah.
So, that would have been nice for him to have that moment. But in any case, his teammates like him. I think there are times he would be wise to, put his phone away and avoid social media. But hey, in this day and age, it's hard for some young people to do. But I'm glad the Bengals signed him last year. It's turned out to be a very good pickup.
It really has, and you don't know he signed the $4 million deal. I think it was this year. Whether they keep him beyond this year, but we got 13 more weeks and hopefully more than that to be concerned about such things. UC, you're getting ready to jump on a plane here in about 2.5 hours. Team making the trip to Tulsa. Tulsa's no pushover. 3-1 so far on the year. One impressive win against Kansas State, in the Big 12. What are your thoughts and what should fans be looking for going into the game tomorrow about this Tulsa team?
Well, I think really big UC fans know this. In any sport, whether it's football, basketball, boxing, you name it, there's always that opponent, whether they're really good in a given year or whether they're just mediocre in a given year, that gives you trouble. And to me, Tulsa is that team for Cincinnati. Now, 2 years ago, Tulsa was excellent, and the two teams met in the league championship game, and Cincinnati won a narrow victory to win the league title. Last year, Tulsa wasn't great, and they might have been the team in the league that had the best chance of beating Cincinnati. The Bearcats needed back-to-back goal line stands inside the 10 to hold on and win by 8 points. And that was the weekend where game day was on campus. Everybody was revved up, and Tulsa almost spoiled things for Bearcat fans that day. So Tulsa just gives Cincinnati fits. It's a style of play thing. I think their coach, Philip Montgomery, is excellent. I know Coach Fickle has a lot of respect for him. So I agree. I think it's going to be a really tough game tomorrow. Tulsa is playing well. The curveball for the game tomorrow night is that we don't know the status of Tulsa's starting quarterback, Davis Brin. He got hurt last week against Ole Miss. Tulsa had the lead at the time when he went out of the game. The player that replaced him is a very different style of quarterback. He is a runner. Davis Brin is more of a passer. So that adds kind of a wrinkle to the game tomorrow. And Tulsa may know if Davis Brin is going to play. They probably do, but they claim it's a game time decision. We won't know until the two teams are warming up before the game tomorrow night.
All right, strictly from a UC standpoint, personnel standpoint, Danny, and you've kind of given us inside info about some guys to keep an eye on that you see in practice and that you hear coaches talk about. Anything out there, whether it's a position group, an individual player, where you say to yourself, I look for this group or this guy to be a bigger part of this team tomorrow. Anything stand out?
Nothing that really stands out along those lines. I think we've kind of established now who, the big game-changing type guys are for UC. But I think just the continued emergence of Ivan Pace is a huge story on this team. When he transferred from Miami University, I think the coaching staff thought, this guy is going to be a nice situational piece. He's a really powerful pass rusher. He once had 6 sacks in a game. We're going to throw him in there on 3rd and long. He'll get some sacks. He'll make some splash plays. That'll be nice. Instead, he's been so unbelievably good. They put him at middle linebacker. He's running from sideline to sideline. He was the National Defensive Player of the Week last week when he had 4.5 tackles for loss. He leads the nation in that category. And it just goes to show you that height isn't everything, because they list him at 6 feet tall. He's probably 5'10", 5'11". That's why he wasn't recruited by bigger schools than Miami coming out of Coleraine High School. But this dude is a player. And I guarantee that when Tulsa put on that tape this week, they were like, oh, my Lord, who is number 0 and how do we block this guy?
All right, good enough. Danny, safe travels, my friend. Thank you for your time. Wish your bride a good weekend. You have a good weekend. Safe travels. And enjoy a rare Sunday off. How about that?
It's my birthday. Timing's good. It's my
Joel,
birthday.
Boys, you ready? Here we go.
Happy birthday to you.
Come on, guys.
Happy birthday to you.
Not much enthusiasm.
Happy birthday, dear Dan. Happy birthday to you.
Hopefully the rest of your birthday songs for you, Dan, are a hell of a lot better than that.
I think that's pretty much guaranteed, Tom, but thank you. Thank you for the thought. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Happy birthday.
See you,
buddy.
Dan. Happy birthday.
Have a great weekend.
Thanks. I will.
All right. I didn't think we were so bad.